Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan responds to questions from the Hawks over the so-called SARS rogue unit. Violence and looting erupts in Gauteng's Katlehong Township as foreign businesses are targeted. A very good evening to you. You're watching eNEWS Direct. I'm Tutuzile Ramela.
And I'm Sandile Gangnose. Good evening.
To comment on any of our stories, you can find us on Twitter and Facebook. That's at eNEWS Direct.
And tonight's hashtags are Gordhan and Bring Back Vus.
And we start with this. Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan has responded to questions from the Hawks. The questions deal with the establishment of the so-called rogue unit at the South African Revenue Service. The unit was set up while Gordhan was SARS Commissioner. Gordhan says he wasn't obliged to respond to the Hawks, but did so in the public interest. He insists the unit was lawfully established and operated legally. The minister says the unit was part of the broader enforcement division at SARS, aimed at cracking down on organized crime. Gordhan's also hit out at the Hawks, saying it has no reason to investigate him. He says all South Africans should be concerned about protecting their democratic institutions, and this should be done in a way that assures the public that these institutions won't be tampered with arbitrarily. Gordhan says SARS cannot be distracted from its core revenue collection mandate. Apparent xenophobic violence has again broken out in Gauteng's Katlehong Township. This is the second time in less than 3 weeks stores belonging to foreigners have been looted and destroyed in the area. Locals say foreigners were warned not to trade. That's after the killing of a local resident earlier this month, allegedly at the hands of a Somali national.
This is one of several foreign-owned spaza shops destroyed in this community. Looters have escaped with all the stock. Shortly before the destruction, a community meeting was held. There were sharp divisions on whether foreign nationals should be allowed to live in the area. This shop remains closed. It's just a few meters away from the local police station, but the owner fears attacks.
Zobulala laba bantu bulala nje into ayikho bulalela into zami.
He says many others have fled to family and friends in other parts of Gauteng. The owner of this property says her tenant, like many other foreigners, were warned not to operate.
They destroyed the property because of the stubbornness of the shopkeeper I leased the property to. They were told not to open their shops after a local was killed by foreigners 2 weeks ago. But he did not listen. He opened, and now this.
Community leaders say a meeting is planned for Thursday to find a way forward. However, for these people, it seems the prospect of living peacefully alongside South Africans continues to fade every year. Malungelo boy, Katlehong.
Justice Minister Michael Masuta has decided to appeal the North Gauteng High Court's decision to release Janusz Walus on parole. Earlier this month, the court ruled that Chris Hani's killer be released within 2 weeks. Walus has been in prison for almost 23 years for shooting the South African Communist Party leader in April 1993. The minister says Walus hasn't shown remorse for his crime and hasn't tried hard enough to make amends with Hani's family. Masuta says he believes the North Gauteng High Court erred in its ruling and that the appeals court could reach a different conclusion. Friends of Vusi Mahlangu say they don't feel safe. The civil rights activist has allegedly been kidnapped in Mthatha in the Eastern Cape. One of his friends says he suspects Mahlangu's stand against outsourcing may have annoyed business people.
We make it very clear that we want fees to fall, not an increment to fall.
Vusi Mahlangu, a voice for the outsourcing must fall and fees must fall movements. But according to his friends, his outspokenness may have gotten him into serious trouble. Mahlangu was allegedly kidnapped in Mthatha after leaving a friend's house on Tuesday. He was due to address outsourced workers at Walter Sisulu University later that day. He sent this message to a WhatsApp group hours after he was last seen. I'm either kidnapped or arrested, and I am bleeding. In a dark place, my phone is about to die. Eastern Cape Police have confirmed that a case of kidnapping has been opened since Mahlangu's disappearance. But who could be responsible?
At this moment, it's very difficult to really suggest who could be behind this. So the whole movement, outsourcing must fall movement, has been a threat to a number of, tenderpreneurs.
Their wealth is because of the sweat, the tears, and the blood of our parents.
Mahedi, who's also an activist against outsourcing, thinks Mahlangu's disappearance serves as a warning to other protesters.
It means any time where you might want to fight against any social injustice, you might just disappear.
It's at institutions here in Pretoria that Mahlangu began leading activists against outsourcing. His friends say his trip to the Eastern Cape was an extension of his passion to fight against social injustices. Zikhona Tshona, Pretoria.
Let's head to KwaZulu-Natal now, where taxi owners have suspended their operations. They want traffic authorities to release more than 200 vehicles impounded over the Easter period. The South African National Taxi Council has been locked in a long battle with the KwaZulu-Natal Department of Transport over permits. The provincial government placed a moratorium on new permits, preventing owners from buying new taxis.
This is how police reacted to rioting taxi drivers as they plunged the city into chaos. But fed-up taxi owners weren't deterred, blocking roads with taxis. They are demanding the release of more than 200 vehicles impounded by traffic authorities during the Easter weekend.
During Easter holidays, there was too many taxis of ours that were impounded by Chanela. And yet the Department of Transport is aware that we have submitted a request to them to say they must please assist all members who do not have permits.
But the Department of Transport is adamant, saying it told the Taxi Association to stop bringing new entrants into the industry. Transport authorities say they'll only listen to taxi owners who are already in the system and have problems with permits.
I just want us to deal with who does not have their license, and I want to know that. I want to deal with those who do not have their licenses.
Taxi owners have vowed to continue their protest action until their vehicles have been released. Meanwhile, Mkhunu has warned that police will crack the whip on illegal activities during the strike. Skushangase, Durban.
A quick look at world news now, and a new era in Myanmar with the country's first elected civilian leader in more than 50 years sworn in today. New President Hitin Kyo is a close aide of Aung San Suu Kyi, whose National League for Democracy recorded a landslide win in November elections. Suu Kyi is barred from the presidency but has said she will rule by proxy. The army retains 25% of parliamentary seats, enough to veto any changes to the constitution. And Egypt's public prosecutor has asked Cypriot authorities to hand over the man accused of hijacking an Egypt airplane. The 59-year-old Egyptian, Saif Eldin Mustafa, was remanded in police custody for 8 days. That's after appearing in a Cyprus court this morning. Authorities have described him as psychologically unstable. Mustafa was wearing what turned out to be a fake suicide belt. He surrendered to police after diverting the Alexandria-Cairo flight to Cyprus following a standoff of several hours.
Meanwhile, Duduzile is standing by to tell us what the country is speaking about on social media.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Sandile. And we start with this hashtag, Buy Local Summit, where Proudly South African is encouraging South Africans to buy locally produced products. In our poll today, we asked you if you agree, and so far this is what you've had to say. 34% of respondents voting local is lekker indeed. 34% also saying I support the local economy, while 23% say it's a personal choice choice, and only 9% voting and saying, well, who cares about locally produced products? And get more details on the story in our business section coming up a little bit later. We move on to this now. There's been a public outcry on social media that's following a statement by the South African National Parks that the missing lion, Sylvester, will be put down once he's captured. Sylvester escaped from the Karoo National Parks in the Eastern Cape for the second time. Now, yesterday, SANParks said the lion has become a problem and would be euthanized. An online campaign has been set up to save the lion, and SANParks now says it's noted the concerns of the public regarding the fate of Sylvester. Remember to comment on any of our stories. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook. That's at eNEWS Direct, or you can head on over to our website. That's enca.com/direct. Do stay with us. After the break, we've got your business news and your detailed weather forecast. Welcome back. So we told you about this a little bit earlier in a social media segment. Buy local and support small businesses. That's the message from a Buy Local summit convened by Proudly South African. Entrepreneurs have gathered in Johannesburg to showcase their goods and services.
Local is lekker. That's the message from Proudly South Africa at its Buy Local Summit and Expo.
We need to move away from the notion and the mindset that anything that is South African is not good enough, but anything that comes from overseas is good enough.
Entrepreneur Mleki Nkunu doesn't have any fancy branding or business cards. The only flashy thing he has is this handmade jewelry. Each piece is a unique design of silver and cow horn.
The most challenging thing is to get access to a marketing platform and to get the stuff out there to people to know it actually. Because without finance, you can never go out there and showcase your stuff.
Umbala Paints is another ambitious initiative on show at the Expo. A group of young guys started the company planning to take on the giants of the world of paint. Some major retailers have started stocking their products.
It's a journey, you know, you have to go through certain stages before you can become, you know, one of the major players. So we're trying our level best in terms of doing the work, getting the brand out there.
The biggest challenge for many small business owners is exposure and marketing. And while it's not very cheap exhibiting at an event like this, many say it's a great platform to network and showcase their wares. Jody Jacobs, Johannesburg.
And with that, let's see how the markets performed today. Let's check in with the Weather Center now. Here's Louis Fernandez.
Good evening and welcome to the Weather Centre. From our satellite imagery, we see that two cold fronts affected the country today. The first one moved over the Western Cape early in the morning. That brought a few showers to parts of the province. And ahead of the next cold front, northwesterly winds were still busy pushing in a few showers into the area. It was a partly cloudy and dry day for the central parts, including Bloemfontein, while north of this it was another very hot and sunny afternoon for Limpopo and Mpumalanga. In KwaZulu-Natal on Thursday, it will be hot once again for the interior. Cloud cover will increase along the coastline, and that will keep things a little bit cooler than what it was for today. In the Eastern Cape, a few afternoon thunder showers pop up for the northern interior, while there will be light rain along the coastal belt of the province, including Port Elizabeth, mainly in the morning. The Western Cape, and there's also a possibility for morning rain around the peninsula and for the Overberg, fairly cloudy for those areas. The rest of the province will be dry and mild with temperatures in the mid-20s. Temperatures bouncing back over parts of the Northern Cape, especially for the Western High Ground. Another hot day lies ahead for Kimberley and Portsmouthburg, both reaching 33 degrees. A hot and dry day as well for the Free State, 32 for Bloemfontein. Partly cloudy weather, but we're not expecting any rain. And it will be mostly sunny for the northwest. Temperatures rising into the mid-30s. Freiburg reaches a high of 36. Temperatures in Limpopo's Lowveld are going to threaten to reach the 40-degree mark, and it's also going to be very hot for the central high ground of the province. 40 degrees Celsius as a maximum for Skukuza, on the other hand, starting off with a warm 17 degrees, and it's going to be a lovely day across the Highveld, remaining sunny and dry. Very similar into Gauteng with temperatures above 30 degrees in the afternoon. Johannesburg, you get to 31, and Soweto just slightly cooler with a high of 30. A look ahead to Friday, and we are expecting a bit of light rain to fall along the south coast. There's a possibility for very isolated thunder showers around the central Free State. And on Saturday, hot and dry weather continues in Gauteng and a small chance for thunderstorms around Mahikeng.
Thank you, Louis. Coming up after the break, top South African musician Thandiswa Mazwai turns 40, and you're all invited to join her tonight in celebration. So if you're one of the most influential musicians on the South African music scene, how do you begin to celebrate your birthday?
Interesting question. Well, multi-award-winning songbird Thandiswa Mazwai is turning the big 40, and she wants you to join in the festivities tonight at the iconic baseline. She's put together a concert celebrating her life and music.
Well, Nontobeko CBC caught up with Mazwai at rehearsals.
She's a self-confessed rebel singer and an all-round dopestress.
When I make the music, I try to invoke something in myself. You know, like when I wrote Nizala Ngobani, the question was to myself.
In her lyrics, Mazwai stays true to herself.
My mother was telling me that Pan-Africanism is important, Africa is important, that women are important, that community is important, that black is important.
She started her career in 1998 with groundbreaking group Bongo Muffin.
I'm turning 40, it's like my 21-year anniversary in the music business.
Mazwai has taken us on a musical voyage, belting out a mix of traditional Xhosa rhythms, mpakang, reggae, kwaito, funk and jazz. Zabalaza was her first solo project in 2005, selling double platinum, bagging at least 5 awards, including a Cora for Best African Female Artist. Her second album, Ibokwe, in 2009, reached gold status in its first few weeks. Mazwai has spread her vocal footprint across the globe, sharing stages with musical giants locally and internationally. The much-anticipated celebration looks a lot like this and sounds a lot like that. And yes, it includes a birthday cake too. Nontobeko CBC at the baseline.
Before we recap the day's top stories, we end off with news just in. Oscar Pistorius' sentencing has been postponed to June. His lawyer confirmed that the state and defense met with the deputy judge president today and agreed to the postponement. The athlete faces a minimum of 15 years behind bars.